We are given n, the number of friends, and we should return how many handshakes there will be. This is the type of problem where the answer is a mathematical formula that depends on n. And the best way to make an idea about how this formula looks like is to solve some smaller examples and recognize the pattern. Let's start with n equals 4. Let's note the friends with A, B, C, and D for simplicity. The answer for this example is 6, but let's see how do we get this number and what it actually means. Firstly, A is going to shake hands with all the other 3 friends, B, C, and D. Then B should technically shake hands with all the other 3 friends, A, C, and D, but because he already shook hands with A at the previous step, he's not going to do this a second time, so he only shakes hands with C and D. Then, if we think about C, he should shake hands with all the other 3 friends, A, B, and D, but because he already shook hands with A at step 1 and shook hands with B at step 2, he's not going to do that for the second time, so he only shakes hands with D. And finally, if we think about D, he should shake hands with A, B, and C, but he already did that. So the answer is 3 plus 2 plus 1, which is a total of 6 handshakes. Now let's take another example. N equals 5. Our friends are A, B, C, D, and E. Firstly, A will shake hands with all the other friends, B, C, D, and E. Then, B will shake hands with all the other friends except A, who he already shook hands with, so with C, D, and E. Then, C will shake hands with all the other friends except A and B, who he already shook hands with, so with only D and E, and D, because he already shook hands with A, B, and C, he will only shake hands now with E. Finally, E shook hands with all the other friends in the past, so he will not shake any hands anymore. If we add this together, we have 4 plus 3 plus 2 plus 1, which is a total of 10 handshakes. Do you notice any pattern? For n equals 4, we had 3 plus 2 plus 1 handshakes, and for n equals 5, we have 4 plus 3 plus 2 plus 1 handshakes. So maybe for the general case where we have n friends, the answer will be n minus 1 plus n minus 2 plus n minus 3 plus ... plus 2 plus 1. Now we have an assumption, an idea about how the formula looks like, but it's time to prove it. Let's take the general example where we have n friends, and let's call the friends A1, A2, an. Firstly, A1 is going to shake hands with all the other friends, A2, A3, an. This is a total of n minus 1 handshakes. Then, A2 is going to shake hands with all the other friends except A1, so with A3, A4, an, which is a total of n minus 2 handshakes. Then, A3 will shake hands with all the other friends on his right, so A4, A5, an, which is a total of n minus 3 handshakes. And one thing that you might have noticed is that every friend on his turn is only going to shake the hands of the friends on his right, because he already shook the hands of the friends on his left when it was their turn. So an minus 1 will only shake one hand, that of an, and an will shake 0 hands. And it looks like our assumption is confirmed. For this case, we have a total of n minus 1 plus n minus 2 plus n minus 3 plus ... plus 3 plus 2 plus 1 total handshakes. Some of you might already know this. This is called the Gauss sum, and the formula is n times n minus 1 divided by 2. But if you don't know about it, don't worry, we will prove it right now because it's very simple. Let's take the first case where n is even. For example, n equals 8. Gauss made the observation that we can group all these numbers into pairs which share the same sum. We can pair 1 with 8, 2 with 7, 3 with 6, and 4 with 5. There are a total of 4 pairs, which is, by the way, 8 divided by 2, and each of these pairs have a sum of 9, which is, by the way, 8 plus 1. So the total sum is equal to 8 plus 1 times 8 divided by 2, which in this case, where n equals 8, is indeed n plus 1 times n divided by 2. You can think of the general case and apply the same principle. You can pair 1 with n, 2 with n minus 1, 3 with n minus 2, and so on and so forth. And because n is even, you will get a total of n divided by 2 pairs, and each of them will have a sum of n plus 1. Therefore, the formula is n plus 1 times n divided by 2. Now let's think about the case where n is odd, because it is a little different. If n is 9, we have to compute this sum. Again, we can group these numbers into pairs of the same sum. We can pair 1 with 9, 2 with 8, 3 with 7, and 4 with 6. There are a total of 4 pairs, which is not 9 divided by 2, but 9 minus 1 divided by 2, and each of the pairs has a sum of 10, which is 9 plus 1. The difference in this case is that now we are left out with a number which doesn't have a pair, and this number is 5, which is, by the way, 9 plus 1 divided by 2. The total sum is the number of pairs, n minus 1 divided by 2, times the sum of each pair, n plus 1, plus the extra number, n plus 1 divided by 2. We can use a little bit of math and notice that n plus 1 divided by 2 is the common factor between these two terms. And we can rewrite this as n plus 1 divided by 2 times, parenthesis, n minus 1 plus 1, which can be rewritten as n plus 1 times n divided by 2, which is indeed n plus 1 times n divided by 2. If you think about the general case, you can do the same thing. You can pair 1 with n, 2 with n minus 1, 3 with n minus 2, and so on and so forth. And the only number without pair will be n plus 1 divided by 2. Then you can add this together and do the same mathematical tricks, and you will get n plus 1 times n divided by 2. And the conclusion is that the sum 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus dot 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 plus n is equal to n times n plus 1 divided by 2. And because our sum was 1 plus 2 plus dot 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 plus n minus 1, according to the Gauss sum, the answer is n times n minus 1 divided by 2. In conclusion, the formula is n times n minus 1 divided by 2. One nice observation is that n times n minus 1 is always even. Think about it. If n is even, of course n times n minus 1 is even. And if n is odd, then n minus 1 is even, so n times n minus 1 is also even. So our formula n times n minus 1 divided by 2 will always result in an integer number, which is obvious. The number of handshakes should be an integer number. And this is it, the type of problem where the solution only consists of one line of code, but the idea behind it is the most interesting one. I'll see you on the next lesson.